Welcome to the NICU Today podcast, a podcast to give families a new point of support as they navigate the NICU journey. Thank you for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe wherever you enjoy your podcast and share this episode with anyone who might find it helpful. Our guest today is the mom of two boys, ages 18 and 2.5. Her background is in hotel restaurant management with an emphasis on culinary arts. She is currently attending Penn State University online, working towards a law and society degree, and when complete, will attend law school to become a family attorney. She is also currently working with her state representative to get a bill passed in Pennsylvania that would change the law on parents being able to be paid caregivers to their minor, medically complex children. So excited to have you here today. Welcome, Crystal Zukosky, to the Today's a Good Day podcast.
Thank you so much, Martha.
So excited about all that you have going on. But tell us a little bit about your family.
So I have, like you said, an 18-year-old son who will be graduating high school this year. And he's currently in the process of applying to colleges and hopefully getting accepted. He got accepted to one, University of Southern Maine, and we're waiting on other colleges to see where he's going to go. And I have a 2.5-year-old who's been my biggest challenge in life. But he's really like my heart and soul. That he's an amazing, amazing boy.
And your biggest love, right? Biggest love.
He really is my biggest love. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask you, Will, you're going to share more about Will, but he did spend a long time in the NICU. But going back to kind of where you started, did you know about the NICU before Will was born?
No, I knew nothing about the NICU. That's actually a funny story because before he was born, I had to be hospitalized for 6 weeks while I was pregnant with him. And my doctor was affiliated with a hospital that did not have a NICU for little babies. It was more of, later pregnancy NICU that weren't going to be a problem necessarily. And I was told by the doctor there, well, we have to transfer you to a level 3 NICU. And I was 20 weeks pregnant. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, what does that even mean? A level 3 NICU? Well, we can't handle, if you deliver early as we know you're going to deliver, we would have to transfer the baby anyway. And none of that made any sense to me. I had no idea what they were talking about. I'm 20 weeks pregnant. I don't know why we're even talking about delivering a baby at this point. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised with myself that I didn't research or look into what a NICU even meant at that particular time, being told this, because I'm a researcher but then for me in the early stages, I really just thought a NICU was where babies went when they had jaundice and they had lights put on them. And that was my whole knowledge of it. I never experienced it. I didn't know anyone that ever experienced having a child in the NICU. So it was quite a surprise.
All new. There are so many of us who do not have any experience in the NICU. We were in the same boat. We didn't know anything about it. We didn't know anyone in our network. I mean, it was all new and very overwhelming. What did your first few days look like after Will was born?
So the first time I saw Will was a couple hours after I delivered him. And it was all very shocking. And I actually threw up after seeing him, which was probably medication mostly, but
yes.
The whole environment, it was all completely scary to me. And then having to get transported to go see my baby, while I was in the hospital, that was difficult to get to him. And when I got there, I really didn't know what my place was. Walking into the NICU, even though the entire staff was completely welcoming and told me, this is your child. You know, follow, listen to the doctors, give your opinions, like be completely as involved or uninvolved in his medical as you want to be. But at that time, I'm like, I don't know what to do with this baby who's so
Mm-hmm.
tiny. It was very and it took me probably a good, I would say 2 weeks before I really got into like a groove of a routine and going to the NICU and making sure I was there during rounds, which was important to me. And I didn't get to hold, I mean, I think I held Will, maybe it was like 4 or 5 days after he was born, which isn't really that long considering he was so tiny. But to me, it felt like I just want to hold him right now, and
Right.
I think he was just so small that it was, let's give him a little bit of time because he was not very stable, the first week he was born.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, just overwhelmed and trying to find your place in the NICU. How did you find your voice to become an active part of the care team and to ask questions and to really get involved?
Um, I'm not a very shy person. So if I usually always just say what's on my mind, and if something didn't feel right to me or something was different, I would ask about it. And I always asked. I asked everything, even if it seemed like a dumb question in my head. I need the answer. Um, so I think that was a big part of it. And the doctors were were so good with me and any question that I had, and they would always answer and never made me feel like, well, that's a silly question. Like, you should know this. But I don't know anything. I mean, it's like walking into a class, I have no idea what the subject is, and like you're expected to know and I don't know anything. So even the smallest bit, I have no medical background whatsoever. So I know when I get a cold. That's the extent of my knowledge at that
Yes. Yeah. Like so many of us, right? I mean, none of us knew anything. Well, some people do if they have medical background or they're in that field, but so many of us don't know any of that information when we go into the NICU. It's all new. So it is important to just ask. I think you bring up a good point of just asking whatever questions that you want while you're in the NICU just to help you understand. I did want to ask you, what was helpful for you? How did you keep track of reports from the doctors, notes from the doctors, thoughts that were going through your head?
So honestly, I had the notes in my phone. So, and my phone is always on me. So if I ever like thought of something, and it could be at any point of the day, it could be at 11 o'clock at night, and I'm like, oh, wait, why did that happen? And then I would just pull up the notes on my phone and type in my question, because I'm not going to remember in the heat of the moment what I want to ask. When it's time for rounds to come and I get my chance with the doctors, I needed something to like refer back to, like, oh yeah, I
Mhm.
had a question about this, can you and it wouldn't always happen like at the particular time between 7 and 10 in the morning when my brain is still foggy.
And
So
when you think back, all those notes, all the questions, how long were you in the NICU with Will?
Will was in the NICU for 6 months. um the He was in one hospital for 4 months, and then we were in another hospital for 2 months in the NICU. But we're inpatient for 11 total months.
In the NICU.
In the NICU for 6.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And when you look back on that time, Will's 2.5 now, what were some of the most important ways that you advocated for him that you can remember?
Um, Things that stick out in my mind: when we switched hospitals, when he was 4 months old, the new hospital that didn't know Will, that had to really learn Will and his little his personality and how he acted and what he liked and didn't like. And they would give him morphine to calm him down at nighttime when I wasn't there. And that was one thing. He never had morphine the entire time he was in the NICU. So for me, I was like, well, why are we doing this now? We changed location, yes, but we didn't change babies. So I don't understand why the need for that is happening now when we've never needed it before. I don't think he's in pain. And if he is, we've always given him Tylenol. And if the Tylenol didn't work, then that's a phone call to me and say, but not just automatically given. So I think it was kind of a big fight because I wanted it taken off of his list of PRN medications completely, because nurses were giving it to him every time he seemed agitated in the middle of the night. And I'm like, well, he's still a baby. And babies do cry or get upset in the middle of the night. That's actually normal. So I don't think, if I gave my kid morphine at home, I would be arrested. So I don't know that that's necessarily a warranted. So it was kind of a fight with the medical team. And then they finally said, okay, mom doesn't want that. I said, if for some reason he really looks like he needs it, then I want a doctor to come in and assess him. And then that's a different situation. But the nurses shouldn't just have full access to any medication. So it did get taken off, and he never was on morphine again.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. It's so important to be that important part of the care team with the baby and providing that feedback. I mean, you have been bedside with him for so many months, for sure. And Will did have a long journey in the NICU, and he also had surgery to have a tracheostomy put in. And what part of the journey was that for you, Crystal?
So the first 4 months that we were in the NICU, we tried to extubate his breathing tube 3 times. And we did 2 rounds of steroids for him. And, in my research, I read that too much steroids could affect his brain. And he never had neurological issues, no brain bleeds, nothing the entire time he was alive. So I was kind of wanting the need to preserve the brain. The rest of his body was all a mush. So if I could keep the brain good, then I know we'll be okay. So I did express that, and the doctor said, well, there is a risk for, with steroid use. So after the second time, I said, that's it. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to put Will at risk. And I know the more times we do steroids for his lungs, for helping his lungs develop, the more I think I had to find a balance of when do you say when. Mm-hmm. So I really looked at the hospital and I said, I love all of my medical team. I love the nurses here. I love the doctors here. But I think you've done as much as you can do. And I think Will needs to go to a different hospital where he will be able to get surgical intervention, which would be a tracheotomy if they felt it was needed, or try different methods that maybe this hospital wasn't doing at the time. So it was when we switched hospitals, they evaluated Will there besides just looking at his paperwork, and they said he would really benefit from getting a tracheotomy. So, after thinking about it for a few days, I said, okay, I really need to think about it and research and see what that is going to mean for him. His quality of life definitely turned around and got so much better because he's not wrapped up, worried that a breathing tube is going to come out of his mouth. He's able to be free and move around, and which was a big deal.
And how did you personally go through navigate the those decisions, the surgery, his recovery, just thinking about other families that might be going through a similar journey. How did you get through it? What advice do you have for them?
It's definitely in the moment, it's very difficult. It's hard to make decisions because you always wonder, are you making the correct one? Is it something that a doctor's recommending? Is it going to be easier on you, harder on you? How's Will going to handle it when it's happening? So I have like a million questions going on in my mind, but at the end of the day, it's all about Will, and we're on a day by day. So one day he could be great, the next day he may not be. But you have to kind of for me, it was, today is a new day. What happened yesterday is not going to happen today, or we're going to try and have the best day we could possibly have today. And that's kind of how my journey was. It was day by day or minute by minute, because you never know what's going to happen. And we've had plenty of bad days, but we've had really great days too. So I always try and focus on the good. And I never saw, and it's funny because I've had people who worked with Will that were nurses to Will, even my family members when he was first born, that really didn't think Will was going to make it. And nobody told me that, of course. And here I am, like an upbeat, everything's great. We're perfectly fine, even though he's got tubes coming out of his mouth and everywhere. And I really never thought, went there in my mind. I never thought that Will wasn't going to make it. Never crossed my mind. I would be positive and I'd say, oh, he had a great day today, and this happened, but he got over it and he's fine. So I think for me, I protected myself by just having a positive outlook all the time. Because
I love that.
if I went to like a darker place, then I don't know, I think Will's outcome may have changed too.
Well, we talk a lot about celebrating the good moments, right? It might be a good day. It might be a day that was difficult but had a few good moments in it. I love what you said, today is a new day, because that is so true. And not only what you've experienced with Will as he's continuing to grow at 2.5, but in the NICU as well. Every day is a new day. You might have a really good, boring day with your baby, and the next day there's some complications, or the machines are going off, or all of those sounds that so many of us are familiar with. So today is a new day. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Tell us about the law you're working to pass.
So as it stands, and every state in the US is different. In Pennsylvania, as a mother or a parent, you cannot get paid to be your child's caregiver. Now, for my situation, I have Will. He's trach dependent. He's G-tube fed. We have medical issues. He needs 24/7 monitoring. The current nursing situation is tough. We have 4 or 5 nights of nursing covered, and that's it. So it's just me. So if I don't have a nurse on a Friday night, well, I'm up all night Friday night watching him, because if that trach comes out, he can die. That's his airway. So with that being said, I can't be employed. I don't have the nursing staff to go out and get a job. It's pretty, it's pretty bad in that way financially. So when I looked into, well, you can get paid as a caregiver. Well, I can get my uncle, my cousin, my mother, even my son, who's now 18, to get paid and be a caregiver to Will. But as his parent, I can't get paid to take care of my child, even though I can't get another job. Like, that resource isn't available to me. It is available in other states. Like, I think North Carolina is one of them. California is one, where if your child needs 24/7 care there, and there's a nursing shortage, or for whatever reason you can't get the help, you can be paid, because that's taking away from income you can potentially make.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, I mean, I probably should have started this when we started Will's journey, but it'll probably happen once we're done with Will's medical journey, but that's okay. It needs to happen. It really needs to happen nationwide, because there's a lot of us. There's a lot of Wills out there, and there's a lot of parents like me who can't, work and take care of Will at the same time. It's impossible. So we need to get out of it's okay that they're living in poverty line, and help them, because figure out a way to have insurance cover it. Because if they're not paying for nurses, and that's part of what they should be paying for. Because there has to be someone that takes care of these medical kiddos.
Well, and you're studying law, and you're going down this path as well, right, Crystal, at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm keeping busy.
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I figured if I have to be up all night, I can be up all night on a laptop doing schoolwork.
Yes.
So I'm better off not frying my brain with Netflix all the time, and actually learning something, and moving forward. Even though I'm 42, so school for me, I didn't think I was gonna do anything else, but I'm like, you know what? Now is really the perfect time for that, because I do have the time, especially when he's sleeping, and I have to be up to where I can really, and it's interesting, and I like learning. So,
well, with what you're doing, you're continuing to advocate for families like yours and helping other families in the future. So I have to ask you, how's Will doing today?
He's perfect. That's my answer every time someone asks that. He really is. He is he does have a lot of medical diagnosis, but he's a typical 2.5-year-old toddler. He signs no for everything. He jumps and runs and climbs on everything, gets into trouble. He's awesome.
Oh, I love hearing that. Well, I'm so glad that you came on the podcast and shared your story, because we've known each other for a couple of years now, and
Yep.
So glad you're part of the Today is a Good Day family of volunteers and NICU parents who can help others. But really appreciate you coming on to the podcast and sharing your story. And thank you to all of our listeners out there for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to the NICU Today podcast, brought to you by Today is a Good Day. Learn more at todayisagoodday.org.